That is true. I knew it was a bad story. I knew. But he asked me for bad stories. Good morning. It is an absolute pleasure to be with you here, Cascada.js. My name's Phil Nash. I am a developer relations engineer at IBM. And if you're at all interested in connecting with me online, you can find me at all of the places where you get to type in the name Phil Nash. I have to go by the name Phil Nash because I genuinely, that story about meeting Terry Pratchett with another person whose name is Phil is true. When I went to school, high school, I joined a class that had 2 other Phils in it, and so for the entire of my high school, I didn't get to be called Phil because the cooler one in the class was. And so I was called Nash for a long time, and now I have to go by all of it because usernames. Let's talk about some other stuff, because I've never been upstaged by a hand on stage, and I'm going to talk about AI, but I'm going to talk about it on the web. And thus I have to start with a warning, because we also saw Jason Mays yesterday talk about very cool stuff that you can do with AI on the web. And I want to tell you this morning about stuff that you can do on the web with AI that you also can't do yet, because it's experimental, it's new, it's fun. My slides and my demos are all running in Chrome Canary, because some of this stuff just genuinely will not work in your regular browser. But my God, I'm excited about it. And we need to be excited about this stuff and get on top of this stuff early in order to learn and see what we can do with it. And so, this AI revolution is happening. I don't think I need to necessarily convince anybody about that. We've just had Craig talk about that. The stuff we can build with AI is incredible. The stuff that we should tell people that we can build with AI is incredible. The ability to perhaps train models on double chin selfies is incredible. But it's not just happening on the server side. This is a web and AI conference, and that's why I wanted to bring the whole thing together, because this AI revolution is happening on the web for us too. And that is what I want to see us build with. And so the thing I wanted to build, the thing I wanted to show that we could do with this, is to build some kind of application that uses AI inside the browser, entirely offline, and allows us to achieve something that we couldn't necessarily do. So, going back to my high school days where I spent a bunch of time in a bunch of classes with a whole bunch of other people called Phil, I did spend a bit of time learning Spanish, but that's quite a long time ago for me at this point. And this year, so I live in Melbourne, Australia. I'm very jet-lagged for the entire of this event, but I was very happy to be able to go and spend time this summer in Spain and in France. But I wanted to be able to speak some of that, and reminding myself of how to speak Spanish was a little bit of a pain. I am going to do some talking Spanish during this, so I apologize to our friend here who's going to try and translate my Spanish into then I've never had this before, I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Which just makes me feel bad that then I'm going to speak Spanish. Anyway, that's fine. The real question is, can we build a translation application using just the web platform, no internet access, no anything else? I want this to be offline and capable entirely within the browser, just within the frame of the browser. So if you're going to do this, what do you need? Well, we need to be able to talk to it and have it understand, so speech to text. We need then some kind of translation thing to happen, and then we need it to speak it back to us, text to speech. It turns out that the browser's had at least 2 out of these 3 for quite a long time. The Web Speech API does both speech to text and text to speech for us, and it's kind of cool. And then you'd probably have to reach out to some other translation API in order to do the translations. So, one aside is, of course, that large language models are incredibly good at translation. Like, this is, I guess it was kind of a surprise. One of those emergent behaviors of large language models is that when you train it on enough language, the similar concepts land in the similar places regardless of the words you use for it, and that counts for synonyms and different languages. And so LLMs are quite good at translation themselves. And so I work at IBM, but I mostly work on a project called Langflow, which is going to go into light mode now because that's easier to see. Good stuff. Please do come and have a chat with me. We have a little booth downstairs, and come and see more about Langflow. But like, this is a very simple flow that just like puts a chat input into, in this particular case, Gemini 2.5 Flash, and it just says, hey, you're a language translation expert. Just determine whether your input is English or Spanish, and then turn it to the other one. And so if I were to go and talk to this in a playground here, I can say, hello, I'm having a great time this morning speaking after a robot hand. And if anybody knows Spanish, you can tell us whether this is a good translation of it. There we go. Hola, me estoy pasando genial esta mañana hablando después de una mano robótica. That sounds good to me, okay. My 18-year-old, my 20 years past Spanish agrees with that. Cool. So, yeah, come talk to me if you want to see more about how Langflow works. But language models in general are incredible at language. It's incredible. And so, going back to building a translation app, inside the browser we have the Web Speech API, which does speech recognition and speech synthesis. And it's been around for ages. Like, I actually think it's really cool, and it's genuinely been around for a long time. And it's not that hard to build, right? Speech recognition looks like this. You create yourself an instance of a speech recognition object, and then you start it. You do have to tell it what language you're expecting to hear it in, but and then a callback basically like just receives ongoing incoming speech from it. I love it to the point that, like, you know, if we build it into our slides, we can start talking to it. So now, if I say anything, it should be able to transcribe it onto the slides. And you can see that, like, when it's in italics, it's kind of thinking about it, and when it's like sorted itself out, it moves out of italics. And I guess I could leave this on and just subtitle the rest of the entire. No, let's. Okay. I've done that before, and it gets weird after a while. But like, speech recognition just exists in the browser, and you can just do that. And I think that's cool. And then speech synthesis on the other side, like turning text back into speech. We just had Yorick speaking with 11 Labs, but this has been around since probably before 11 Labs existed. And technically, the browser does throw this all down to the operating system. So it's Mac and Windows that we have to thank for all of this. But the speech synthesis is the worst API because it's impossible to say. Because you have to create an instance of a speech synthesis utterance, which is impossible to say once, let alone 3 times in a row. But when you do that, and I love the idea of an utterance. We just utter stuff. But it exists and it works in the browser. And I'm just gonna, let's say I've already forgotten things to say. Brilliant. So I live in Melbourne, Australia. Karen is a Australian.
This is so much fun.
Is a loud one.
This is so much fun.
That's better. But what's great about this is if you ever look at the list of voices that are available to you. Now, I'm on a Mac, and there's a lot of them. But some of my favorites, Eddie exists a lot of times, Flo. There's the whole system of whole section of grandma and grandpa voices. They're not very good. They're not even that funny. But my absolute favorite is Bubbles. This is, if you've ever built something and you're afraid to tell somebody about it, or you just don't feel very proud of it, and Craig talked a lot about that just now, I think you should be proud of it. Build anything, show everyone, because somebody at one point said, I tell you what, we need a voice. We need a speech synthesis voice that sounds just like bubbles.
This is so much fun.
Somebody shipped that a long time ago, and it still exists. There's also Jester, which is great because it's the same thing but laughing.
This is so much fun.
So always be proud of what you ship, because so we can do speech recognition in the browser. We can do speech synthesis in the browser. But translation is the thing we didn't have access to. Translation is something you would probably think, if you were to build this today, you'd be like, I'll find an API. We can send the speech that we grab from the microphone down to a server somewhere. We can translate this on the server, send it back, then we can speak it back. But we can do better than that. And so AI on the web is it's not a new frontier. We saw yesterday Jason talking about a whole bunch of things that people have been able to build in AI on the web, and it's kind of incredible. I think he has to come out and show all of this stuff because we don't really realize it, because once you build a feature into an application, regardless of whether it uses AI, when you build a feature into an application, people don't care if it's built with AI. They care about the feature. And I do want to see more of that kind of stuff. There is way too much of way too much advertising of applications and things that used to be something you knew how to use, and now they're like, now with AI, and it didn't change anything or it didn't make anything new. What we need to do is build features that people care about. And so seeing that stuff from Jason is incredible. And you're able to download and bring in models on the web and use them to do incredible stuff, and I love that. But my one problem with it, and I have spoken with Jason about this before, is very much the whole, you do have to download models from Hugging Face or wherever you're getting these things from. And the more interesting, the bigger the model, the more download you've got to do, and then every website has to do this. And if every website decides it now needs a large language model, it needs a version of Gemma 2 billion or whatever, then every website is doing a 2 gigabyte download, and everyone's phone's immediately running out of space. And so AI on the web exists, and we've seen it for a long time, but if we don't ever want to make our users go through a 2 gigabyte download in order to experience our application. And so this is something that the Chrome team spotted and decided they wanted to work on. And so building AI into the browser has become something that they're working on and that we can benefit from. And they first started with the prompt API. The prompt API is exactly as it sounds. It is a large language model that exists within the browser that you can talk in natural language to and get and get responses to from, like your ChatGPTs or your Claudes or whatever. And it's not that hard to use, which is incredible. All of these APIs that we're going to see from now on basically follow the same model. You have in this case, language model, and you will call create on it. Create will do a download of a model in the first instance that it gets run. But because we're not downloading it and using it within our own app, it's the browser that's doing the downloading. It only has to get run and downloaded once per browser. And so I think this is kind of like a 10 or 15-year-old dream where everyone was like, what if we all just use jQuery from the same CDN? Then we already have it, which never worked out. But in this particular case, this is browser controlled, not developer controlled. So one download, every other site gets to use this. And so you call create, you download it, and then in this particular case, in the prompt API, you can call on that model, and you call .prompt, pass it natural language, and it will respond to you. And so this is running here in my browser. And if I ask it to write me a 4-line poem about cats, it will write me a 4-line poem about cats. Soft paws, tread silently near. It's not a good poem. This is not the biggest model in any way, but it is capable of doing this, which I think is great. My favorite thing at the moment is to ask it to tell me a joke about JavaScript. Why did JavaScript developers work on C#? That's genuinely the best one it's ever done. I have to give it another go. What's a favorite? There we go. What's a developer's favorite kind of pizza? Algorithm. That doesn't make any sense at all. So this model, this model is Gemini Nano in Chrome here. Gemini Nano, I think at the moment is now based on the similar architecture of Gemma 3N. Gemma is Google's open source version, and Gemma 3N is great, but this size, not very good. Or at least, you know, if you're asking for humor, like, don't do that. But it is a capable language model. And exists now inside the browser, which is kind of cool. It has some restrictions, though. So as I say, this is Gemini Nano. Right now, as we're experimenting with it, it does require like Windows or Mac OS or Linux. It is coming to some Chromebooks very soon. It does require you to have at least 22 gigabytes of storage. I think this is just the browser being kind to people and just being like, I won't fill your stuff up, because it's only like 2 gigabytes in size, but they don't want to suddenly surprise somebody. And it does require you to have more than 4 gigabytes of VRAM, which my laptop has, but maybe other people's don't. So like, there's some issues with this. There's secondary issues as well. When you're trying to standardize something like including a large language model inside a browser, the other browser vendors are just like, what? Particularly, you know, Mozilla, they're not building their own language models for Firefox, as far as I'm aware. Safari, I mean, Apple has had its issues with trying to roll out any kind of generative AI. But Microsoft are on board. There is versions of Edge in the world that have the small model Phi 4, but baked into it. But this is genuinely shocking. Like, nobody wants a 2 gig download. Nobody wants any of this. And so what happened was this prompt API was provided to us as developers as an experimental version, and then the Chrome team learned what people were doing with it. And then, if you know what people are doing with an AI model, you can actually train smaller, more focused models to do exactly that thing. I knew I was talking about something. There is slightly more to this API in that you can ask whether it's available. So you get to call on this like availability function, which is really useful. And it can say it's either available, downloading, downloaded, or you cannot have it, unavailable. And that's useful so that you can progressively enhance your application somehow. And you can monitor that download. And genuinely, if you do call the prompt API, and now you're like, okay, we've got 2 gigabytes. We're going to see this progress happen. That's useful. But more importantly, like I said, people experimented with this and then started building stuff with it. And we ended up, the Chrome team ended up building more specialized APIs, smaller models, more of a focus, and solving problems that people actually had on the web. Because prompt APIs, prompting in general is just so broad that you don't necessarily, you can do anything with it, but it turns out we all fit into a bunch of buckets anyway. So, smaller, more focused models include the translator, and yes, that does fit into what I was talking about for the entire thing so far. A language detector, a summarizer, and those three are actually available in Chrome already. They launched in Chrome 138. There are two that are currently going through origin trials. That's the writer and the rewriter. And then there is the proofreader, which is currently kind of in an early access trial, which is a pre-origin origin trial. But I think that's coming to origin trial soon. And so these smaller models allow us to kind of access like very cool bits of functionality that we couldn't previously have in the browser without doing a 2 gigabyte download of a model. And we can just deal with it. And so the Translator API, for example, looks similar to our original language model API. You call on translator.create. You pass a source language and a target language, in this case, English and Spanish. And then once it's downloaded, and it does still have a download, like these translation models are more sort of 70 to 80 megabytes, which I think we'll all agree is better than 2 gigabytes. But once it's downloaded, we can then just translate text, and it just works. So it's winter. So the last time I gave this talk, I was in Australia, which meant that I went to Spain in summer, but in Australia it was winter, and it's nice to escape the cold of Australian winter, which I don't think people understand exists. Australia is cold in winter. But I went on holiday to Spain in summer. Me fui de vacaciones a España este verano. It is quick. It's incredible. This is a fantastic place to be. Things I agree. Like, it's immediately done. Like, that translation takes no time at all. This is a fast laptop, but it is kind of incredible that this is just something that exists within the browser. We also have the language detector API. Like, this one is useful because, if you're a person browsing the internet, you probably want to translate things into your language, but we need to know what we're going to translate from. And so the language detector allows us to check on that kind of stuff as well. And so, again, it's the same thing. We call on languagedetector.create. I think this is an even smaller model. It's great. And then once you have access to it, you've got detector.detect. And so the language detector, I went, see, I've got winter in there again. It doesn't matter. That looks like it's English. That's good to know. If I go and pick up some actual Spanish and put that in there instead, probably Spanish. I like that. Some of my favorite things to say in Spanish is just ordering a beer. But it's a nice thing to note that, like, if you say that, it looks like it's probably Spanish, could be Portuguese. So this is proper machine learning, artificial intelligence, where you're like, here's what we think it is. It's all a bunch of probabilities. Right, and so I've built this into a translation app. We've used speech to text, translation, and text to speech to build an application that over here will do that for me. And thanks to Craig, I want to be proud of saying I got the design from this from AI. And then I said, make it look futuristic, which is why it is in light blue neon or whatever. So what we should be able to do is use this button to start listening using the speech detection API, speech to text APIs, and then it will translate it and speak it back out in another language. Now, I don't like Eddie, I'm going to go with Monica. And so if I start speaking, what am I going to say? It's just absolutely wonderful to be able to speak with you all today, and I hope you hang out with me later at the party for a beer. And we give that, and it goes through, and this is where it fails. It's good stuff. It worked in the background. Hello, I really want you to work. Sick. It's not gonna. All right. The incredible thing about this is that I'm going to blame the speech-to-text stuff on this. because technically none of that works offline. And I am online, as far as I'm aware. But the dark secret behind the web speech API was always that when you spoke to the web speech API, it was going off to a server in Google Cloud to do the actual speech to text. It was not private. It was free. That's nice. But it did not happen on your device. It happened in the cloud. And when you call a JavaScript API just that works inside the browser, you normally would imagine that that is just going to happen inside the browser, but no, Chrome was sending it off. And that is one of the reasons why it didn't exist in other browsers, because they didn't have a cloud translation or, speech-to-text API that they could do that with. And so I did say offline, and I want this to be offline, and so we're going to ignore the fact that that immediately failed on me and build the better version, the version that works entirely in the browser. And so we saw the prompt API earlier. The prompt API was that first experiment from the Chrome team to see if we could do AI models built into the browser. And then earlier this year, they announced this at Google I/O earlier, that they upgraded that prompt API to a multimodal prompt API. So I think it's based on the Gemma 3N model, which is also multimodal, and allows you to input not just text, but audio or video or images to it. It currently sits behind a flag. This is why everything is running in Canary. But what it allows you to do is, not just send text into it, but you can send different parts of different content to it. And in this case, like I wanted to send it an audio buffer. And you can send it an audio buffer, and it will transcribe that, understand it, do stuff with it. And so if I go back to the demo, and this time around, we're going to ignore the fact that the first one didn't work, and we've got this prepare to record button. Now, because this deals with audio, and everything audio in the browser requires like a user interaction first, we do have to ask it to prepare. And if you were to press that button for the first time, it would then start going, all right, cool, I've got a 2 gig thing to download. But I previously downloaded this, so that worked. And this time around, everything I do is going to be offline inside the browser. So I've turned the Wi-Fi off. It's entirely possible that this is a hard connection, but it's fine. This start recording button is going to get me. So I would very much like to order a beer for my meal here in this restaurant. Important stuff.
Me gustaría mucho pedir una cerveza o para mi comida aquí en este restaurante.
Right. Okay. And now we can go back the other way. We can do it back to, so this input language thing here, actually that mattered for the old demo that didn't work, but if I now try and say the other thing back the other way, we should be able to get it translated back into English from Spanish. Apologies for my accent. Me gustaría mucho pedir una cerveza para mi comida aquí en este restaurante.
I would very much like to ask for a meal here in this restaurant.
Okay, so it's saving me from alcoholism. But it worked. And so, with the abilities, so what we've got here is the media recorder API recording my voice. It's turning it into an audio buffer using the web audio API. It's sending that audio buffer to the multimodal prompt API with a prompt to say, transcribe this into text. The text then gets sent to the language detector API. The language detector API says whether this is English or Spanish. That then sends it to the translator API, which knows to turn it from one to the other. The translator API then sends it back to the speech synthesis API, and that goes into our crazy voices. I could have had this read it out in bubbles, but I decided against it. And what we built was an entire in-browser translation API, offline, using stuff you can do in the browser. I think that's cool. But we don't all necessarily want to build a translation API. There are so many use cases for this. And like Jason covered this yesterday with the web AI stuff that he was talking about, but we could build so much other stuff, right? Actually, I really love the translation use case of this. I remember when I used to use Twitter, and I followed people from all over the world, and sometimes they would tweet in their own languages, but Twitter had a little translate button underneath. And that's great, and that's not something that's on Blue Sky, which is a shame, but I think that's probably because Blue Sky can't afford to run a translation API. But if you can just do that inside the browser and get like a best effort out of it, I think that's really cool. Doing personalized summarization of user reviews. So if you've been on Amazon recently, you probably get down to the review section, and there's this little summary of all the reviews. But if Amazon can know something about your preferences, or you can even tell it that, summarization of preferences based on what you care about is absolutely something you can create from within the browser when you're not, paying for it. Suggesting alt text for image uploads. This is something I've actually built recently using Langflow, but doing so within the browser, using that multimodal API, incredible. Transcribing, translating videos, being able to do any of this stuff with user preferences directly inside the experience is just something that, now we have this capability to build. But I think the far and away the biggest use case for any of this is that privacy use case. The idea that everything that we do inside the browser does not have to be sent off to a server somewhere. That web speech API that Chrome had implemented from a long time ago was always sending user voices, if you used it, off to a server somewhere. But now we no longer have to do that. Privacy and the ability to use your browser and the device that you're dealing with this on is, I think, an absolutely killer use case. And so now it's your turn. This stuff exists. It's there to play about with right now. If you have Canary, you can play with the prompt API and the reader, writer, proofreader APIs. Translation and language detection are available to play with inside Chrome right now. If you like this stuff, talk to your other favorite browser vendors and see if they want to get involved in this. There are conversations going on. But the ability to build stuff in AI, with AI, build amazing features in our browser with this stuff is in your hands today. And so that's what I want to see. I want to see what you can build with this. I want to see what I can build with this. I want to see the incredible world of applications and features that we are capable of building. And so that is all I've got time for. There are some links. Basically, go to the Chrome documentation to see what sort of stuff that they have available for you. There are a bunch of demos that they have on GitHub, which are great to look at. I haven't quite published my translation demo yet, just because it fully doesn't work unless you have Canary. So it's not a great experience. And if you do want to experience or play around with stuff on the server side, Langflow is a great way to play around with that as well. If you want to hear more about that, come find me downstairs. I'm on the second floor and would love to have a chat with you. Other than that, I hope you have an incredible rest of Cascadia.js. I'm already having an incredible time, and it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you this morning. Thank you so much.